Well, on behalf of the festival, let me welcome you. It is my pleasure to be chairing a session in which Raza Kazmi Sahab is giving a presentation. Um, Raza Kazmi Sahab has spent a lifetime in serving the cause of scholarship and history and book publishing. He has been a teacher, a scholar, a writer, and he has been working for a long time with Oxford University Press, particularly looking after its Urdu publications. There are many encyclopedias that have come out through his supervision and his hard work, and I have a very personal regard for him. Uh, the title chairman chair sounds very lofty, but really it is not lofty. I'm just a postman. I will forward your questions to him, and maybe sort of choose from among you if many of you want to ask a question. As you know that Kazmi Sahab is going to talk about the turning points in Pakistan's history, important turns in Pakistan's history. The list of what those turns are, I'm sure there are many, but for good reasons, he has chosen a few about which he is going to give his observations. Now, we will try to, as Kazmi Sahab says, accommodate, entertain as many questions as possible. So please, don't hesitate to ask questions, and I do hope that we get sufficient time at the end for a lively discussion on the issues. So I think without much ado, it's over to Raza Kazmi Sahab for his presentation.
Thank you. Now let me read out the first, and I think I'll have to do some explanation. The religious demography of British India permitted only approximate solutions. You could not have a perfect solution of the communal problem. You could have only approximate solutions. And we had an approximate solution in the division of India. Communal rights, displacement, and a history of limited and categorized franchise, by which of course I mean separate electorates, attended partition. The division of the provinces, that is the provinces of Punjab and Bengal, did not serve the long-term purpose of causing the new state to collapse, but they had long-term effects with which we are still engaged. Why I am saying this is that you must understand that if we are at a very bad turn of our history, we alone are not responsible. From the people who handed us power, and better than my exposition, you will find a book called Escape from Empire by Rabia Umar Ali of the Quaid-e-Azam University. So all our troubles, they have a basis in our history. We have survived. Since we have survived, it is not realized how great that achievement has been. We have survived in spite of the fact that we did not have the goodwill of the world. In the initial stages, we did not have industries, and more than that, the Western Bloc would not sell Pakistan machinery for which India already had her industries running. They wouldn't sell us machinery for jute, they wouldn't sell us machinery for cotton, they wouldn't sell us machinery for sugar mills, and we had to start from scrap. We ourselves were cash-starved people, And you know, you should know, if you know a little bit of history, that Islamic socialism was a term introduced by Mr. Jinnah. And one of the few things that you will be told about the Pakistan movement is that Jinnah never defined it. That's wrong. In 1944, he made Dr. Mehtab Ali Shah of the University of Sindh is gracing the occasion, and I want to say before him that it is often said that Jinnah deliberately did not define Pakistan. He defined Pakistan in territorial terms. That means the Pakistan we have now, plus the whole province of Punjab, the whole province of Bengal, and the whole province of Assam. Then he defined it politically. He said that it would be a democracy. And then he defined it economically. Mr. Jinnah said in Bombay in 1944 that it is my personal view that the major services and the major industries shall be socialized. It was because the assets were withheld that at that initial stage our plutocrats came to our aid and we could not fulfill our program as envisaged by the founder of the nation. Then this photo which you may see, if you are allowed to see a photograph, then the screen is coming up, so you'll be able to see it very soon. डायरेक्ट 2 पर चले जाइएगा. If you see the first photograph, you'll see the Qaid-e-Azam with Hindu refugees following partition. You will understand from this that because we did not have the goodwill of the world, we did not have the help of the world, whatever we have achieved out of our own resources. The check for a large amount that the Nizam of Hyderabad sent to Pakistan was not allowed to be cashed by Pandit Nehru, because that check was based on Indian securities. So he tried, the Nizam did try to help Pakistan, but he could not. Now that is the background to why we have had such a bumpy start in our national history. We suffered a setback when the first Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan, was assassinated. Now let me read to you. I've written a book. You'll see the picture of the book. But it is my responsibility to tell you that my research has been superseded. I'll read you a passage from a journal and you can understand what it is. The Deputy Commissioner of Rawalpindi, J.D. Hardy, Lieutenant Colonel Chirag Hassan, and Nawab Siddiq Ali Khan did not see any blood on the front of the ashkan of the Prime Minister. There was no blood in the front. Rizvi Saab, this is something on which Manto has written. There was no blood in the front of his ashkan. Is an old-fashioned sherwani. So Liaquat Ali Khan was shot from behind. He was shot from the stage. And below I give the reference, Sayyid Muhammad Zulqarnain Zaidi, Pakistan Perspectives, published by the Pakistan Study Center, University of Karachi. Now, in a reference to Manto, let me tell you why I have chosen as an important turn in Pakistan history the assassination of Liaquat Ali Khan and not the death of the Qaid-e-Azam. You see, Manto wrote articles on both occasions. about the funeral of the Qaid-e-Azam, he said that people were mourning, but there was still a spirit of defiance which should be there in every living nation. But when Liaquat was assassinated, he was devastated himself. And quite in line with what Zulkarnain Zedi, I don't know this gentleman in person, but leave the screen, I'm here. I hope I can gather your attention. And this shows that it was a deep-seated conspiracy not to end it, not just to end the life of the Prime Minister, but to deal a severe blow to Pakistan. Today, we always, and let me add, unjustly accuse our leaders of corruption. But once you kill a person who is the embodiment of honesty, then it is be something like Macbeth hath murdered sleep, Macbeth shall sleep no more. So don't be surprised. This is the fallout we have, the instability that Pakistan suffered as a result of the assassination of Liaquat Ali Khan was halted only after General, later Field Marshal Muhammad Ayub Khan staged the first military coup of Pakistan. Within his 11 years term, the highlight is the 1965 war. Now, what is so special about the 1965 war? As I've said, it's one of the most furious wars in history, where initially both sides claimed victory and later both sides conceded defeat. As I mentioned the names of Admiral Nankani of India and General Mirza Aslam Beg of Pakistan, who said by 1995 that their respective countries had not fared well in the 1965 war. You've been told, I'm sure you've been told by very, very authoritative quarter that Pakistan started the war. That is not true, because the Sunday Times says that when the war started, the air chief and the naval chief were not aware of the beginning of the war. No country can begin a war, initiate a war, without taking the surface heads into confidence. And the second thing which I want to emphasize is that all constitutional solutions to the Kashmir dispute had been closed by Article 370, and as a result, people were sent as infiltrators into Kashmir, not into India, but into Kashmir, like refugees were sent by the United States very lately to Cuba in the Bay of Pigs crisis. The immediate cause of the 1965 war, full-fledged war, was the fall of Kargil to India. You perhaps do not know that Kargil was on the side of Pakistan till 1971. And the Indian conquest of Kargil in 1965 did not excite international concern as much as the fall of Kargil to Pakistan in 1999, was it, Dr. Saab? Kargil took place in 1999. So that's another turn in our relations, in our nation's history. And then you can come to the 1970 1971 war. Before that, I think I've just said, Sir Maurice James was the British High Commissioner to Pakistan. His role was to persuade Ayub Khan to end the war without involving China, and for that he promised, and I'm reading from the British papers, Sir Maurice James told President Ayub, the world would not, repeat not, in the foreseeable future revert to the position that the future of Kashmir was a closed issue. The British papers, Oxford University Press, 2002, page 388. You have the reference. And Dr. Mehtab Ali Shah is the author of a book, a celebrated book on our international relations. I'm sure he'll bear me out in this. 1971 war, I am preparing a paper on Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and the historiography of 1971 for the Pakistan Historical Conference. So I won't touch upon that aspect now, but I just want to read to you the explanation given by General Yahya Khan after Dhaka had fallen. He said there was always the possibility that events in East Pakistan might take the course they have taken, but I had no alternative. People would not have excused me if I had allowed East Pakistan to secede. Well, Dr. Henry Kissinger, at the height of the 1971 war, also said that the American arms embargo on Pakistan was having effect contrary to what we had hoped. As such, there was a certain inevitability about the separation of East Pakistan. There's another side to it. We blame the United States, saying that the 7th Fleet did nothing. In the governmental configuration of the United States, in the administrative configuration of the United States, it's not possible for any one person, however powerful he is, to take decisions alone. So while the President, Mr. Nixon, and Dr. Henry Kissinger were on the side of Pakistan, the Secretary of State, William Rogers, was not. The decision to send the 7th Fleet was taken only after it was considered that it was only considered only after it was understood that Bangladesh would come into existence. The 7th Fleet did not reach its goal of Visakhapatnam, southern to Chennai of today, because the Soviet Union had set only 8 miles from the Pacific coast to nuclear-armed submarine to counter the move of the 7th Fleet. So please disabuse yourself of the idea that the United States left us in the lurch. It was at that point that they did try their earnest best to help us, but they were faced with their own destruction at the hands of the Russians. Then I've come to the 1977. I'll have to go a bit close because we don't have much time. You know that the venue was shifted at the last minute. The 1977 movement, what was that movement for? They said it was a movement to establish the Nizam-e-Mustafa. They said that it was a movement to Islamize Pakistan, to bring Islamization into Pakistan. The PNA movement was led by Air Marshal Asghar Khan. Air Marshal Asghar Khan was leading the PNA movement which was for Islamization, on 25th December 2009, Air Marshal Asghar Khan, while receiving the Jinnah Awards in this very hotel, he said that Liaquat Ali Khan was wrong to deviate from the secular vision of Jinnah, and Asghar Khan said that he did not like Islamization. He said this when 30 years had passed after Zulfiqar Ali Bhutto had been sent to the gallows. So that is why I cannot say anything about you, why I am a bit wary when movements start. We need to tell you one thing more. You see, there are just causes. But if a just cause has a disproportionate response, then that becomes terror. The Palestinian cause is a just cause. The Chechenian cause is a just cause. But that does not in any way justify 9/11. And it does not justify the Beslan massacre. School children in Beslan were killed. Can you imagine the scene? It's only after that, after nobody from Pakistan condemned the Beslan massacre, that our own children are being blown up. Our own schools are being blown up. This brings me up to nuclearization. All right, we have nuclearization because we can't live without nuclearization. Why? Because Pakistan proposed a nuclear-free South Asia. That proposal was turned down. Last minute before testing, the Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, he said that he would not test if Pakistan were given a nuclear umbrella. That was denied him. Then he had to go ahead with the decision to test. Now if you look at that, I've given two instances. Number one, lady health workers who were administering polio drops were assassinated. They were killed, outright killed. And then you heard of Malala Yousafzai already, and you know how many girls' schools have been blown up in Pakistan. I see young girls in the audience, and I appeal to their feelings. And I have to tell you this small thing, that health and education are not alternatives to security. Security is a prerequisite for health and education. Now, I try to answer your questions as best as I can.
I think you can hear me. First of all, allow me to apologize for the disturbance that is going on here. There was a last-minute change of venue, and Kazmi Sahab had some images to show to you, which he has been unable to, and so far you can see all we see is disturbance and no result. I hope that we can get something on the screen. If not, we'll have to do without it. So please bear with me. I apologize, and like you, I am also a guest. I'm not one of the organizers, and I'm going to broach this problem with the organizers later on. So please bear with me. Now, I'm very, very happy that Kazmi Sahab has said something which is of crucial importance, I think, and that needs your attention. Namely, that all our troubles have a basis in history. All our troubles have a basis in our history, and therefore it is very, very important for us to have a sense of the historical depth in the discourse. Much discourse in Pakistan goes on without the historical dimension, and I think it is something very important that we can take from his presentation, that one has to look back and see what happened. Things do not emerge out of the blue. That is the message And what has gone on in the past is something very important for us today. Kazmi Sahab recognizes 6 turns, important historical turns in Pakistan's history. And the earliest one, namely the division of South Asia, has a thorn in it. And the thorn is the withholding of the assets. Now, the withholding of the assets have had profound implications for Pakistan, and we have not still quite recovered from that. The question of Balochistan, the question of what used to be called NWFP, all these things have historical grounds, and unfortunately, since we do not talk about history much, we are pretty ignorant of that. I am absolutely sure that Kazmi Sahab has provoked many questions. Many of you are also experts. I really am not an expert. I'm simply a postman here, and I'm learning. But there are experts I can see among the audience. So please, comment and as brief as possible so that we can accommodate as many people as we can. In the meantime, if you could put up with this disturbance, we may have a few images. But if you don't have the handout, please tell me, and I'll have one sent to you. Okay, so the floor is open.
Yes. There should be. There should be a mic.
Do we have a mic for the audience? Please wait for the mic.
Kazmi Saab has mentioned the 1977 PNA movement, but a very important date in our history, which is 5th July 1977, or 4th April 1979, have not been mentioned. Now, these are two very critical points in our history when what we see in Pakistan today, the extremism, the so-called Islamic fundamentalism, and the repercussions out of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's execution, is a manifestation of the problems, the mindset that you mentioned in the Malala incident, that manifested after what Ziaul Haq did to this country, the brutal regime with the quotas on the journalists, the whippings and the lashings and the oppression, really has left us with scars which we have not been able to wash away. What would you like to say about what happened, who was responsible for it, why didn't the people resist, why didn't the people come out and on the streets when this was happening, and what is the resultant of it? Thank you.
Well, the main reason that I stopped at the 1977 movement and mentioned Mr. Bhutto's execution only in passing is because I cannot bear to speak about it. All the consequences that you have mentioned are true. Some of us did come out on the street, but this is the danger you must understand. You must understand. When people are put on a propaganda path, it's very difficult for sane voices to turn them back. We are graced here by Mr. Kamal Ahmed Rizvi. He has employed the power of the electronic media to the maximum. And he will wear me out that when there was only one television channel with the government at that time, that channel was countered by the BBC Urdu broadcast. The BBC even announced in advance the venue and date of the next PNA meeting. So this was something that I told you that for the coming Pakistan Historical Conference on the 12th and 13th of March, I will be presenting a paper on Zulfiqar Ali Bhutto and the historiography of 1971. You're right, but I had emotional and sentimental reasons for not touching upon that in detail.
Let me just sort of inject a couple of sentences. Kazmi Sahab had spoken to me about his identification of
Yes,
six
one
turns,
by one. Chalo,
and he told me that he will not be touching upon Bhutto Sahab's assassination. One, because it's too close to his heart, and and it is very difficult to hold one's composure over the issue. And secondly, it might lead into some controversy, and this could be a controversial issue. But having said this, let me just say this, that I think that the overall thrust of his position is that these are not just local events; they are also international events. Ziaul himself is part of some kind of an international issue. You cannot remove USSR, the former USSR, from the scene. You cannot, overlook the rise of the Mujahideen and so on and so forth. So that is also an international phenomenon, and therefore that also has its roots in history. Ziaul himself is a product of certain historical conditions. So I think it does not damage the thrust of what Kazmi Sahab is saying. But one more thing, if I may, even though it's Kazmi Sahab's show, not mine. One thing is that there is also a tendency among many analysts to blame everything on just one phenomenon. It is Ziaul Haq, it is Ziaul. I think that it is, things are way more complex than that. But anyway, over back to you.
So you mentioned Air Marshal Asghar Khan, who started the movement for Islamization, and then you mentioned later on he lamented the fact that Pakistan moved away from the secular ideals of Jinnah. What were the reasons that made him, because as you mentioned, he was the pioneer of the movement, and then he sort of backlashed on his words. So what exactly happened?
Well, his only aim was the removal and the execution of Zulfiqar Ali Bhutto. He had said that he wanted to see Zulfiqar Ali Bhutto hanged at the Kahala bridge. He's achieved his purpose. After he achieved his purpose, Islamization had no meaning for him.
When we go through these events, the 6 turning points in the history, what I see is missing is that there is no mention of any ideological events over there. Particularly I want to mention towards objective resolution, which was passed in 1949, if I remember. Unless we go through those things, because all these things are just the repercussions of those ideological events, because it was because of that event and lack of any formal constitution till 1956 that we had to face so many tragedies or whatever happened to our country. Furthermore, if we don't have any system of governance, because what we see today in our country is after 65 or 67 years, we are still not able to find what should be the mode of governance. Sometimes people keep saying whether Pakistan should be Islamic state or there should be dictatorship or democracy. So the basic problem, I think, had been lack of governance system, which actually I found missing in all this.
Yes, it's missing from the presentation, but it's not missing from the book. You see, we've got a very short session, but let me tell you about the objectives resolution. It was not a deviation. What the objectives resolution said was that the Muslims of Pakistan would be enabled, not forced, would be enabled to order their private, individual and collective lives according to their religious tenets. I don't think that this thing is absent even from the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of the United Kingdom. So it was just an expression of the fact that though the form was secular, the content was Muslim, and that was something which couldn't be wished away. And at that time, the Jamaat-e-Islami was the street power in Pakistan, and if you read their demands, they wanted no democracy. They said democracy is un-Islamic. They are still saying that democracy is un-Islamic. Actually, Liaquat Ali Khan resisted them. He did not yield to them. And only he had the political prestige to withstand their pressure. So, it's not that because we didn't have a constitution that we had assassination and instability. It was because of an assassination that we did not have a constitution. When the 1954 constitution was tabled, the Constituent Assembly was dissolved. Then we had another compromise constitution in the 1956 constitution where parity came up. You know why? What were the two main hurdles in making constitution? One, the role of religion in Pakistan, and number two, the franchise system. What they knew, the fundamentalist parties in those days also knew, was that the Muslim population of East and West Pakistan was equal, but it was a larger populated wing because of the Hindu population there. That is why they wanted to introduce separate electorates so that the Muslim population of both wings would be equal. So it was with an ulterior motive that the constitution making in Pakistan was delayed.
Hello, sir. With greatest respect, I would like to contradict you there, I think. In my opinion, the objectives resolution was not a secular document. And I think this is an opinion shared by most observers because it privileged one religion over another. And proof of this, I think, sir, is that minority groups at the time did claim that, hey, this is not fair on us. This is bringing religion into politics. And as you said, it said Muslims would be enabled to practice their religion. I'm sure you agree that is open to a lot of misinterpretation. And yeah.
Well, let me tell you that it is to interpret the constitution that we have courts. And they are doing it, aren't they? But let me tell you what it goes on to say. The objective resolution went on to say that the minorities would be able to practice their religion freely. And while Liaquat Ali Khan was sitting in the Constituent Assembly, the leader of the opposition, Chattopadhyay, was assured that this is not going to be a part of the constitution. The objective resolution was not intended by Liaquat Ali Khan to become part of the constitution. Ziaul Haq, he made it a substantive part of the constitution, and when he did that, he removed the word freely from what how the minorities could exercise their religion. The fact that General Ziaul Haq had to remove a word for the minorities that Liaquat Ali Khan put there shows that it was not theocratic. Liaquat Ali Khan incidentally had said that Islamic socialism was the state policy of Pakistan.
No, but the piece of objective resolution was not made the part of constitution. That happened during the era of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto.
No, yeah, did it?
In 1973 itself, objective resolution.
Yes, well, yes, all right.
In the form of preamble of the constitution.
It's a preamble. It's not a, I said, substantive part of the constitution. There are two portions of the constitution. One is called justiciable. By justiciable you mean that you can go and seek redress from a court of law for anything, any right mentioned there, and which you are not getting. Secondly, it was certainly not Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto who removed the word freely from the objectives resolution when he was making it part of the constitution. It was General Ziaul Haq.
Sorry, please.
I finished.
Do you have a follow-up point?
Yes,
please
just
go.
to follow up, sir. My reading of Pakistani history. Yes, my reading of Pakistani history, and I think you'll agree, is that Pakistan got slowly more and more religious down the road. For example, from what I have understood, and I did do my BA dissertation on this topic, the constitution introduced by Ayub Khan was in fact a lot less Islamic, at least when it was introduced, than the constitution introduced by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in 1973. In fact, what I concluded in my dissertation was that it was Bhutto who put the roots down for the Islamization of society in his constitution. And what Zia did was, in fact, he made many of those constitutional aspects subject to enforcement by courts, like you said. So I think the responsibility for the Islamization is with Bhutto. Even though he was not an Islamist himself, he was the one who did abdicate to their demands. Do you think this is a just view?
Well, we are here, so every interpretation of history, of any national history, is there for expression.
But I think the point that this gentleman is making is that it is not a matter of interpretation, it's a factual point, namely that the germs were left by the Bhutto so that it could be further realized in the time of Ziaul Haq. So this is a factual matter of history, who actually started this process of whether putting it in the preamble or making it challengeable in a court of law. That's the next step up. But I think that's your point too, right?
Yeah, that's true. But initially, you yourself actually said that Bhutto's assassination is quite close to his heart. So that's why this thing was not mentioned in the
Every minority wants a secular government. Every majority wants an ideological government. Now he
contradicted that.
well, don't you see it? Look, well, when you say that Bhutto started Islamization, I will add that it was only in the 1973 constitution that Islam was declared the official religion of Pakistan. Not under Liaquat, not under Muhammad Ali Bogra, not under Chaudhry Muhammad Ali, under Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. And what happened to him?
If they go by your statement that all the Christians living in the United States, because they form the majority, they would be voting for Catholic government over there, not the secularism.
No, you see, they have already had the 30 years war. We are in the middle of our 30 years war.
Even if we compare it with India, then the Hindus
Well, of course, look, if you look my book, if you look at my book, you will find a great deal against India. You will not find a word against the Hindu religion. In fact, Hindu philosophy is one of the special gifts of India to world civilization.
the same way Islamic philosophy can be a gift to the whole civilization of the world, but it should not be made the governance system.
Look, I agree with you when you say Islamic ideology.
I think, yeah,
But not Islamic philosophy. He is the expert here.
we have 5 more minutes left, and I think it would be unfair to make it a position of your own ideological stance that it should be or shouldn't be. The point is an exposure of history. This is how it is, and whether we like it or not like it, these are the facts. Whether it ought to have been the case is yet another issue. I have a question from the back. Why don't you, over there, that young man over there.
Girl.
Young girl. Okay, I thought your neighbor was going to ask a question. So,
Okay.
a young girl from the back.
Sir, the external factors like the Cold War for decades, didn't it influence most of the events in the subcontinent?
I couldn't get your question. The
Uh,
Cold War?
the external factors like Cold War, didn't it affect the, didn't it influence the subcontinent, the events in the
It came
subcontinent?
to Pakistan's rescue. If the Korean War hadn't started, Cold War, that's the part of the Cold War. If the Korean War hadn't started, then we had already taken the decision not to devalue along with Britain and India, and that proved to be short term, but it proved to be a boon, and we were helped in that way. We would not have a scrap of military. We would not have a single bullet with us if the Cold War hadn't been there, and if we had not allied with the United States.
So-
We became allies for different reasons, but we put forward the wrong reason ourselves.
So the answer to your question is yes. There's a direct impact of that. We have sort of 2 minutes left. Any final remarks, questions? Yes.
Sir, I wanted to know. We always discuss Ziaul Haq. We always throw dirt on his name. He was the almighty bad man for Pakistan. But we never discuss, even in our media circle, we never discuss the role of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Minorities like the Ahmadis were declared non-Muslim under his era. Pakistan became Islamic Republic of Pakistan from Dominion of Pakistan under his era.
Yes, you're
He
right.
was the one we blame kind of for losing East Pakistan.
No, I'm going to say there's a lot of propaganda there. For example, he never.
But the
he
elections
never
happened.
said-
But the elections happened, and he was a part of it. So why is that biased?
I'll tell you. I'll explain that point and then we'll move on. You see, the 6 points program was a confederal program. And if you want to know the difference between a confederal and federal constitution, you can read my book and you can see the reference to the Hamilton Papers. It was a confederal program, and Bhutto explained that in a confederal system, the majority party of one unit cannot become the majority party of the other unit. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman could either become the Prime Minister of Pakistan or have his 6-point constitution. He could not have both. It was for showing that the slogans raised by the Awami League in Dhaka were not against Yahya but against Bhutto. Bhutto mukke lati maro. Bhutto mukke lati maro. So it is a perception. He did take certain wrong decisions. He was vulnerable. Pakistan was vulnerable. It was a government run by insomnia. And I would not give a blanket condemnation of Ziaul Haq, because you see, if Ziaul Haq had not tried to halt the advance of the Soviet Union at the Afghan border, the Soviet Union would be at the border here in Karachi. So you can't blame him for that. And he took advantage of the Afghan invasion to complete the nuclearization program. What do you mean? Start?
Like, is there some documentation of the fact that USSR was planning on hitting on Pakistan after it was done?
No. I'm just saying, look, if I've come to this door, you can imagine I'll come to the chair. Well, of course, in international relations, in security implications, you have to anticipate. You mean to say you wanted the Soviet Union to make Afghanistan its part, and you were so strong after the separation of East Pakistan that you would allow them to come right down to Karachi? You've seen what the Afghan population is doing to your country. Do you think that we would have been able to withstand the Soviet army if we can't withstand the Taliban? So give everybody his due. Give everybody his due. I have no hatred against anybody. Yes, I think we have only one question left.
Okay, very briefly because we have to vacate the space.
Sure, sure. Do you think relations with the United States from 1948 till now have given us much more support than rather we had good relations with USSR?
Well, we tried to have good relations with USSR. Let me tell you that the United States was the only country to send its representative to Pakistan's independence ceremony. And the USSR was the only country not to congratulate Pakistan on its coming into existence.
So that's a perspective of history, right? We have so many perspectives that United States have, presented us drone attacks and many people have died in Pakistan. It's
Have you read the
extremism.
WikiLeaks?
Yes.
Well, one Pakistani general asked his American counterpart to attack with drones at a certain spot in Pakistan. Well, do you have any answer for that? Yes? Yes, sir.
Do you know that? Do you know, sir, that Communist Party of India had supported Pakistan, and after the creation of Pakistan, they were put into jail. Why?
I tell
Because
you-
they were the true. They were the true for the Pakistan, and what they behaved,
Yes.
what
Last
the Pakistan
question, if you-
establishment
unless
behaved
you
with them.
Finish your
Please.
question, I can't answer. It is very true, and Urdu literature is a testament to it, that the Communist Party of Pakistan helped in the creation of the Communist Party of India helped in the creation of Pakistan. That is a fact. And it has been acknowledged. In fact, when there was a proposal, a cabinet proposal to ban the Communist Party of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan would not agree. But after his assassination, even during his lifetime, he was being sidelined by Ghulam Muhammad. We went a bit counter to the Soviet Union to an extent. Yes, I'm sorry. I did not get yours. Yes. Why? I'll tell you. You. Please listen to my answer. Please listen to my answer. You can come here and make your speech, or let me answer the question.
Let him answer. Let him
It
answer.
was for the reason that after the creation of India and Pakistan, the Communist Party had sent Sayyid Sajjad Zahir here to break up Pakistan.
No, that's wrong conception.
It's not a conception, it is a fact.
We are done with the time. We have to vacate.
I think we have to. I'm so sorry. This is a very important issue, and I have to be rude, very rude, and interrupt you because we have to vacate this place. Thank you very much. Thank you.